Thomas, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for Claude Code, building production agents that actually scale. I was wondering if you could take a moment to talk to us a little bit about yourself, about where you are and who you are, and a little bit about what you've done in your career and what your book is about and who it's for.
All right, fantastic. First and foremost, thank you for having me over here, Len. Right, Thomas Ross, based out of the United Kingdom, London to be precise. Currently working for a company called HL Technologies, a global service integrator. And I've been spending, I think, in the last few decades, 2 or 3 decades, working predominantly for financial institutions. That's basically the world where I come from, kind of tier one banks, heavily regulated workloads, places where move fast and then you break things, and that's not really an option typically, right? So, and because sometimes something breaks the wrong way, it might have, let's say, big impacts to kind of people's personal life, right? And the regulator might show up, you might end up in the news or something, and therefore the book is called Claude Code, building production agents that actually scale. And to me, it's a book that's about taking Claude Code from something you typically experiment with on your laptop, something that you actually can trust in production, and I think that's currently an oversight. It's easy to experiment. We're running kind of AI agents at scale. It's completely a different ball game. So it covers to me the whole stack, the agent loop, the primitive tools like tools, hooks, skills, MCP, when to leave your typical trusted CLI to an SDK and when not to go there. It covers as well the permission model, sandboxing, and for me, very important, leaning towards agent ops, evals, observability, cost engineering, basically keeping the lights on. And that's where typically things really go wrong. And that's where you have that possibly that reputational damage for maybe these financial institutions. Now, I use throughout the book things around financial institutions, but it does apply to any kind of industry or any vertical that's heavily regulated, right? Um, the book itself is written mainly for senior engineers, tech leads, architects who've been told basically go and figure that thing AI out, right? To make it run in production. I am assuming in the book that people know what an REST API is, what OAuth looks like. I'm not teaching Python. That's not what this book is about. It's about teaching a specific set of problems when you put a Claude Code agent in front of real users with real money, right? So I think that that's kind of where I'm sitting a little bit, Len, right? Where I'm coming from, what the book is all about, and who the audience is.
Yeah, thank you very much for that great explanation. One of the reasons I was so excited when I saw your book appear is that there are so many books that come out. They're great. It's so excited. Everyone's excited about, particularly in the programming world, particularly if you work for startups or something like that. To be able to use these tools and to maybe deploy to production and stuff like that. And, so for example, I'm the resident non-programmer at Leanpub. But so I got, the first thing I do was like, for example, when I prepare a launch video, I had a sort of document that I would duplicate and then I would find replace like the author name and the title of the book and blah, blah, blah. But of course that all exists in Leanpub, right? So now I've vibe coded an admin page that I can create from the book that then fills out all that information and does it all automatically and stuff like that. But of course, I can only get away with that because I can hand it off to a team of kind of very smart programmers who can evaluate what the heck have I actually done. Am I exposing us to anything and stuff like that? But my background, rather than being in programming, I used to work in the city. I work in investment banking, um, in London, for a while, and, like, one thing I was familiar with was, like, if you send an email to the wrong email address, you might go to jail. And when you come from that side of things, and I know you used to work for Lloyd's for a long time and stuff like that, like, when you work on the highly regulated for good reasons side of things, you are accustomed to having harder questions than, "Will it break our site?"
Yeah.
And instead, "How does it actually work? What is it actually doing?" Your book comes from starts right there, right. What are the 5, like, kind of logic things in the kind of Claude loop?
Yeah, and I remember clearly I was once upon a time called by kind of my kind of my project leader, and I'm then subsequently called into the boardroom talking with one of the CEOs at indeed the kind of the bank you just mentioned. The problem that arises over there is that people were signing, let's say, transactions of other people on their statements during the very first kind of moments when we introduced digital banking. Um, and that's where kind of like they say over here, the shit hits the fan, right?
Hmm.
That's really where things really goes wrong. I stayed 2 nights long, kind of trying to fix this, and I have learned throughout that 2 days a lot of things to kind of build the right guardrails in the safe kind of the safety net, making sure that we can monitor through our kind of the production life cycle. At that time, we're not talking about AI agents, but in a non-AI world, you still have to have that right level of observability, the right set of coding practices in place as well. So that's now kind of, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, but I've learned a lot throughout kind of that 48-hour stint, right, where I had to go and knock on the door of kind of the CEO of the company and explain precisely how did this actually happen, right? Because that had a massive kind of impact in the industry. It hit the news as well. So yeah. Now with AI agents, right, with them being kind of non-deterministic, we're taking this completely to a different level, right? For sure, you don't know precisely what they're doing, how they're doing, what type of tools they're calling, what type of skills they're calling. That has an impact, obviously, on their behavior, hallucination, perhaps maybe as well. That has an impact on how costly they are, right? Because you can't really kind of predict them because they're not deterministic, like in a typical kind of very static workflow. That's where I'm coming from. So obviously Claude Code itself typically used by the masses as an IDE coding assistant, but or kind of your typical VS Code, JetBrains, and all these kind of good things, including Cursor. But I'm taking this to a different level, right? I'm trying to, in the book, look at what's beyond that typical IDE coding assistant, what Claude Code is really well known for. I'm taking this to a kind of a production agent runtime, which is a different setup, right? People don't tend to think about Claude Code as that production agent runtime, which is it very suited for at the moment. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from, Len.
If there was one thing you could communicate to all the young programmers out there who are all of a sudden kind of like using it as a coding using Claude as a coding agent, what's the one thing you would like to impart to them?
Um, at the moment, I would say actually focus on domain expertise, and that's one thing. And obviously, build in your guardrails. Make sure that you think about scaling AI agents, um, and make sure that you can take AI agents that are misbehaving very quickly in an automated out of production as soon as possible. And when I say as soon as possible, I don't refer to days. I refer to seconds, minutes, perhaps maybe, because if an AI agent, for whatever reason, starts misbehaving with a different type of data set that you have not tested against your golden data set in during pre-evaluation stage, then indeed you can have completely different behavior in production. And that's the moment when you need to take them out of production very rapidly. And that's what I'm talking in the book about as well, right? Evaluation, observability, doing these things in a very automated way. Many enterprises are not there yet. They do have kind of automations in pockets, but not end to end. And I think that's where we need to focus on. Definitely when agents are non-deterministic. It's we're playing with probabilities over here sometimes, right? And they can misbehave or behave in a different way that you have not expected or coded for. Um, and that's where we need to focus on.
Thanks very much for that really excellent explanation. I hope every young programmer out there and maybe more senior kind of hears that as well. The book is very good, very clear, very well written. I know it was a lot of work to do, and it's just excellent. It's exactly does what it's meant to do. It's called Claude Code, Building Production Agents That Actually Scale. Thomas, thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening to talk to me in my morning over here about your really great new book.
Thank you so much, Len, for having me, and thank you so much for building this fantastic platform, Leanpub, right? Okay, it's really a pleasure of working alongside with yourself and obviously your audience.
Thank you.